Close your eyes for a moment. Now picture this. You're sitting at the dinner table with people who say they love you. They're laughing, smiling, talking about trivial things like the weather, the latest neighborhood gossip, or what to cook tomorrow. But underneath all those cheerful faces lies something darker. A secret.
A lie.
One you told. One that you never thought would cost you everything. That's exactly what happened to me. One lie. One choice made out of desperation, fear, and ego. I didn't mean for it to go so far. I didn't mean for it to swallow my life whole. But lies, they have a way of multiplying, of tangling themselves into your words, your relationships, your decisions until you can't tell where truth ends and deception begins. I remember the moment it all began. It wasn't some evil master plan. I wasn't sitting in a dark room scheming about how to manipulate those closest to me. It started with something small, a lie to cover a mistake. Something I thought I'd fix later. Something I thought I could manage. But the thing is, lies don't stay small.
They grow.
They evolve. They poison everything. That one moment, that one lie, it didn't just destroy trust. It stripped me of everything I once held dear. My family stopped talking to me. My best friend blocked me. The love of my life walked away without looking back. I lost my job, my dignity, my peace. All because I chose dishonesty over courage. And yet, years later, when I had nothing left, when I was building my life from the ashes, a message came. A knock on the door. A phone call I never expected. The same people who turned their backs on me, they came back. Not to accuse me again. Not to punish me. But to beg me for help. Sounds ironic, doesn't it? But life has a strange sense of humor. And karma, as they say, never forgets an address. I don't tell you this to paint myself as a victim. I was wrong. I lied. I caused pain. I take full responsibility. But I also know what it feels like to be hated, abandoned, and misunderstood. I know what it feels like to sleep with regret as your only companion. Yet I also know what it feels like to rise, to earn trust again, to rebuild what was lost, to look in the mirror and not hate what you see. This is my story. A story of betrayal, yes, of pain, of consequences, but more importantly, a story of redemption, of justice, of unexpected turns. Because when you're on your knees, with nothing left to lose, that's when life truly begins to reveal who you are. And sometimes, just sometimes, the same people who wanted to see you fall are the ones who end up needing you the most. They say your past doesn't define you, but mine refused to stay buried. My name is Adil. I wasn't always the man people whisper about. I wasn't born with a plan to deceive or destroy. In fact, once upon a time, I was the most trusted, reliable person in the entire circle. Friends, family, even strangers believed in me. I was the guy everyone called when they were in trouble. The guy who had the answers. Who offered his time, energy, and heart without asking for much in return. But life has a strange way of testing you when you least expect it. I came from a modest household. My father was a government clerk, the kind of man who believed in doing things the honest way, even if it meant struggling. My mother was gentle, soft-spoken, and the very definition of loyalty. I have an elder brother, Samir, a man of logic and success, who always walked the straight path, even if it meant walking it alone. I, on the other hand, was different. Not dishonest, just more adaptable. I always believed in possibilities, shortcuts, clever workarounds. I didn't lie to hurt people. I lied to survive, to win, to avoid conflict. To me, it felt like I was managing life, not deceiving anyone. But that's how it starts, right? One lie at a time. My best friend, Danish, was more like a brother than a friend. We had grown up together, shared dreams, failures, even crushes. We planned to open a business someday, a media startup. We didn't have capital, but we had fire. He trusted me blindly. That was his strength and his downfall. Then there was Myra. Myra. She was the calm to my storm. Beautiful in a quiet way. A deep thinker, an old soul. We had met during a volunteering event and just clicked. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, raw, and unfiltered. She had seen my struggles, my dreams, my flaws, and still chose me. She believed in the good she saw in me, even when I doubted myself. But sometimes, love alone isn't enough when lies begin to pile up. I remember the turning point. We were desperate for money. Our project needed funding. The launch was days away, and our last investor had pulled out. Danish suggested we wait, rethink, maybe delay the launch. But I couldn't. I had told too many people. I had hyped the project so much. My pride couldn't handle failure. So when an opportunity came along to manipulate some financial records, I took it. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd fix it later. No one would know, but they did. And when the truth finally unraveled, it hit harder than I ever imagined. Danish felt betrayed beyond repair. He had trusted me with everything, his time, his name, his savings. Myra left without a word, only a tear-stained note left behind. My brother refused to speak to me. My father, he just looked at me as if I was a stranger. That broke me more than words ever could. I had gone from the golden boy to the family's shame, from a friend to a fraud, from a lover to a memory. And here's the thing. Once the first lie is out, everyone starts digging. Every small misstep, every white lie you ever told, they all come to the surface like skeletons clawing their way out of the grave. I tried to explain. I begged. I promised change. But no one listens to a liar, even when he's telling the truth. I lost everything in a matter of weeks. My business collapsed. My relationships shattered. I had to leave the city just to escape the judgmental eyes and constant whispers. For years, I lived like a ghost, moving from job to job, place to place, trying to find pieces of myself again. It wasn't easy. Regret clung to me like a second skin. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the faces of those I had hurt. Every smile I saw reminded me of the ones I had broken. But slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. I stopped blaming the world. I faced the mirror. I owned my mistakes. I volunteered at shelters, took up honest jobs, even if they paid little. I enrolled in therapy. I studied. I read books about integrity, healing, human behavior. I started helping others who had fallen like me. And in doing so, something strange happened. I began to heal too. Life didn't change overnight. It took sweat, humility, and patience. But I became someone new, someone better, someone my past self wouldn't recognize. And just when I thought I had closed the chapter forever, just when I had learned to live with my scars, the past came knocking. I had finally come to terms with my past, or so I thought. The ghosts of my mistakes had been buried deep enough, and I was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could live without the constant weight of regret. But life, as it often does, has a way of bringing back the things we least expect. It started with a phone call. A simple, unexpected phone call. It wasn't from a family member or an old friend. It wasn't even from someone I trusted. It was from an unknown number. I hesitated. Who would be calling me after all this time? Curiosity won over, and I picked up. A deal? The voice on the other end said, hesitating slightly before continuing. This is Danish. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My throat tightened as his name hit my ears, and a storm of emotions flooded me. The last time I had spoken to Danish had been years ago, after I destroyed everything we had built together. His betrayal wasn't just about losing a friend. It was about losing the one person I thought would never leave. And now he was calling me? A deal. I need to talk to you. Danish's voice was shaky, desperate, and it hit me harder than I expected. Danish, after everything? I struggled to find the words. Why now? What do you want? He paused for a moment, then said something I never thought I would hear. I need your help. I almost dropped the phone. The man who had walked away from me, no, who had almost hated me for what I had done to him, was now asking for my help? After everything? It didn't make sense. Was this some kind of sick joke? Was he playing me again? I was so confused, so angry, yet a small part of me was strangely intrigued. I don't understand. I finally managed to say, trying to steady my breath. You're asking me for help? After everything I did to you. I know it sounds crazy. I don't deserve it. But please, a deal. I have nowhere else to turn. There was a long silence before he spoke again, his voice lower now, almost broken. I'm in trouble. Big trouble. And I need you. I know I hurt you, I know I abandoned you when you needed me the most, but I've been trying to fix everything, to make things right. And I've hit a wall. A deal. I'm asking you as a last resort. Can you help me? The words hung in the air, thick with tension. Danish was one of the few people who knew me completely. He knew my weaknesses, my strengths, my deepest fears. He knew what I was capable of, and he knew the darkest corners of my past. I had no idea what kind of trouble he was in, but I didn't trust him anymore. Not after what he'd done. Not after everything. I wanted to say no. I wanted to hang up the phone and never think of him again. But something in his voice, the rawness, the vulnerability, pulled at me. Was this really him asking for help, or was this another manipulation? You've got to be kidding me, I muttered under my breath. He didn't answer. He simply waited, probably anticipating my response. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. I thought of how he had abandoned me when I needed him most, how he hadn't even tried to hear my side of the story. The betrayal stung like fresh wounds. But I also thought of how he had been my closest friend. The man who once had my back when the world seemed against me. The man I had trusted above anyone else. Could I help him? Could I really put my own pain aside to save someone who had once been a brother to me? Was it worth the risk of being hurt again? Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I spoke. Tell me what's going on, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil in my chest. And don't leave out any details. There was a long pause before Danish began to explain. He told me that he had gotten involved in something dangerous, something he couldn't get out of. A business deal gone wrong. A money laundering scheme he had unwittingly walked into. Danish, the logical, successful man, had been roped into something dark, something bigger than he could handle. And now, the people involved were threatening him and his family. They had leveraged everything, his finances, his reputation, and the well-being of his loved ones. He had tried to fight back, but he was out of options. I've tried everything, Adil, he said, almost pleading. I've gone to the authorities. I've tried to pay them off. I've asked for help from everyone I know. But no one believes me. No one can do anything. But I know you know people, you've got connections. Please help me. The truth in his words hit me like a punch to the gut. He was truly desperate. It wasn't some trick. He wasn't playing games. He was drowning, and I could see it. I thought about it. I didn't owe him anything. I didn't owe anyone anything. I had already been through hell because of lies and betrayal. Helping him would mean risking my own peace. But at the same time, I knew how it felt to be at the bottom of the pit, alone and with no way out. And if I'm honest, a part of me still wanted to believe in the person he once was. The person who had stood by me through thick and thin, who had trusted me even when the rest of the world turned away. I'll help you, I said finally. But understand this, Danish. If you betray me again, I'll never look at you the same way again. Never. He didn't respond immediately, but I could feel the weight of my words sink into him. Thank you, he whispered. You don't know what this means. But in that moment, I knew that helping him wouldn't be easy. It would be dangerous. It would test me in ways I wasn't sure I was ready for. And worst of all, it would reopen wounds I thought I had healed. But I was already in. Because sometimes, when you've lost everything, helping someone else is the only way to find redemption. The days that followed were a blur of activity. Every moment was filled with uncertainty and tension, as Danish and I tried to navigate the labyrinth of threats, lies, and danger that surrounded us. At the core of it all, I could sense his desperation. It was in the way his voice quivered during our phone calls, the way his hands trembled when he handed me documents to review. And yet I had to stay focused because I was already in too deep. The first time I met with him in person after agreeing to help, I could see how much he had changed. The confident, self-assured Danish I once knew was gone. In his place was a broken man, haunted by fear. He looked older, worn out by sleepless nights and the constant weight of knowing that the people he had crossed would stop at nothing to destroy him. We met in a dimly lit cafe, a place I used to frequent with friends back in the day. The air was thick with the smell of fresh coffee, but it couldn't mask the tension between us. I sat across from him, watching as he nervously stirred his coffee, avoiding eye contact. "This isn't easy for me, Adil," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd be in this position. I never thought I'd need to ask you for help. But I can't get out of this mess alone. These people, they're dangerous." His words were heavy, weighed down by guilt and fear. And for the first time in years, I truly saw him for who he was: vulnerable and exposed. He was a man on the edge, desperate to survive, not just for himself, but for the ones he loved. "I know," I said, my voice cold and distant. "But you have to understand, this isn't just about me helping you. This is about me risking everything, my reputation, my safety, everything I've worked for. And if it goes wrong, you and I both know who's going to take the fall." Danish met my gaze, his eyes pleading. "I get it, Adil. I do. But if you don't help me, these people will make sure neither of us is safe. They've already ruined my life. They're not going to stop until they have everything." There it was, the cold reality of the situation. We weren't just talking about helping a friend anymore. We were talking about facing off against a dangerous, powerful network of people who had no intention of letting go. It was a fight I hadn't signed up for, but somehow, it was a fight I found myself standing in the middle of. "I can't do this alone," Danish added, his voice shaky. "I need you. I need your help, Adil." My mind raced. I had already given him my word, but with each passing moment, the weight of that promise seemed to grow heavier. What had I really gotten myself into? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that there was no easy way out. This wasn't just about helping Danish anymore, it was about survival. Over the next few days, we made a plan. A dangerous one, but the only one we had. We decided to confront the people who had been threatening Danish directly. It was a risky move, one that could easily backfire. But the alternative was to sit back and wait for the inevitable. They would come for us, one way or another. As the day of the confrontation neared, I could feel the fear in the pit of my stomach. I had faced danger before, but this was different. This wasn't some petty dispute, it was a matter of life and death. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Danish wasn't just in danger, I was too. Helping him meant stepping into a world of darkness I had long avoided. But in the end, I couldn't back out.
Not now.
The day of the confrontation, we arrived at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The place looked like something straight out of a crime thriller: rusty metal doors, broken windows, and an eerie silence that made my skin crawl. Danish and I were both on edge, but we knew this was the only way out. We walked through the creaky door, our footsteps echoing in the emptiness. And then they appeared, two men, tall and imposing, their faces hidden in the shadows. I could feel the tension rising, thick and suffocating. One of them stepped forward, his voice deep and menacing. "You're in over your head, Adil.
You should have stayed out of this.
You're making a mistake by helping him." I didn't flinch. "I'm not here to make mistakes. I'm here to end this." The man chuckled darkly. "End it? You think you can stop us? We've been running this city for years, and you're just another pawn in the game." His words stung, but they also fueled something inside me, something that had been dormant for a long time. It was the same fire I had once felt when I'd been betrayed, the same fire that had pushed me to fight back when I thought I had nothing left to lose. "I'm not a pawn," I said, my voice low and steady. "I'm someone who's done letting people walk all over me. And I'm not backing down now." There was a moment of silence before the tension exploded. In the blink of an eye, the two men lunged forward, but Danish and I were ready.
We had planned for this.
We had anticipated their every move. The next few minutes felt like a blur of chaos. But through it all, there was one constant. We were in this together. No matter how deep the darkness, we were determined to get out. When it was over, The warehouse was silent again. The two men lay on the ground, unconscious but alive. We had done it. We had faced the danger head-on and survived. But even as we stood there, catching our breath, I couldn't shake the feeling that the battle wasn't truly over. We had won this fight, but there would be more battles to come. The people behind this were powerful, and they wouldn't give up so easily. And yet, in that moment, I knew something had changed. Danish had proven that he was willing to do anything to make things right. "Thank you," he said, his voice full of gratitude. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve your help." I shook my head. "You don't have to thank me. But this doesn't mean we're in the clear. There's still more to face. But for now, at least we've survived." As we walked away from that warehouse, I knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, but for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't fighting alone anymore. Danish and I may have been broken in different ways, but together, we had managed to find a way out of the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, that was all we needed. As Danish and I walked away from that warehouse, I couldn't help but reflect on the strange twist of fate that had brought us to this point. A man who had once betrayed me, who had stolen everything I valued, had come to me for help. And yet, I couldn't turn my back on him. The bond we shared, however broken it had been, was still there, unseen but undeniable. The battle was far from over, but in that moment, something inside me shifted. Maybe it wasn't about the past or the betrayals. Maybe it was about the present, about making choices that shaped who we were, rather than letting the darkness of the past dictate our future. "Are we done?" Danish asked, his voice hoarse but relieved. I looked at him, the man who had once made me feel like everything I held dear was just a game to him. "No," I replied softly. "But we've made it this far, and that's something." It wasn't just about winning the fight, it was about what we learned along the way. I had learned to trust again, not because of what someone else had done, but because of what I chose to do. I chose to help, to rise above the hurt, and to move forward, no matter how painful the journey had been. I thought about the future, and while it felt uncertain, I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't face it alone. This story isn't just about betrayal or revenge. It's about redemption. It's about how, even after everything is stolen from you, there's always the possibility of regaining what was lost. But it all starts with the decision to act, to step into the unknown and choose to fight. So I ask you now, what will you do? Will you let the past control you? Or will you take the steps to rebuild, to trust again, and to find strength where you thought there was none? The choice, as always, is yours. And remember, sometimes the greatest redemption comes not from what we gain, but from what we're willing to give, no matter how hard it may seem.